now available in paperback and e-readers. Spellbound, a darker shade of black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. Just about 3 months after the murder of George Floyd and the riots that took place in Minneapolis and the protests all across the country, which are still going on in places like Seattle and Portland, we have yet another incident of racial profiling which took place here in America. And in this incident which took place in Aurora, Colorado, where people are still protesting regarding the murder of Elijah McClain, we have several Aurora police officers participating in what could be alleged to be a racial profiling incident where they stopped a vehicle with a black woman and several black girls and then had them step out of the car, handcuff them, and place them face down on the ground in an effort to try to find some sort of stolen vehicle. And when I take a critical examination of this incident, it clearly shows me how in the aftermath of all of those George Floyd protests and riots, how little things have changed regarding these police departments here in the United States of America and how it treats black people. Because this incident is a textbook case of a use of excessive force and a textbook case of how officers escalate things as related to their so-called procedure and make mountains out of complete molehills with their excessive tactics and excessive force. Because there was no need to have everybody step out of the vehicle and have them laying down face down on the ground, and there was no need to handcuff children who are as young as 6 years old. When you have officers participating in this type of action, this is not about trying to find a stolen vehicle. This is about sending a message to those black people to either not come back to that area, or to send a message to put fear and instill fear in them as related to white male authority. Because that's really what this was all about. It was about terrorizing those black girls, and it was about instilling a fear of police in them. Because, again, if this was about trying to find a stolen vehicle, all they had to do was run the license plate in the computer database, and that license plate would have easily come up, and they didn't need to do anything else after that. Because once they saw that the license plate number was not the one they were looking for, they could have easily sent these people on their way home without any sort of incident. But these people, what they wanted to do was use the excuse of this is procedure, and this is one of the things that these beta males and beta females do in law enforcement, is hide behind procedure because they don't want to take responsibility for their actions, because they are too cowardly to stand up and take responsibility for their actions. What they do is deflect by saying, oh, this was all part of police procedure, when if this is part of police procedure, this is just going too far. This is all about, again, terrorizing black people and sending a message to those black people: either you're in the wrong vehicle that does not fit in my perception of what you should be driving, or you are in a place I don't think you should be. And again, if these guys had, again, really wanted to check it out, they would have said, okay, they would have been looking for the vehicle. They would have run the vehicle in the database, and that would have been the end of the issue. They would have run the vehicle in the database even as they were driving, and that would have been the end of it. And because it would have come up saying, okay, that's not the vehicle. The vehicle that we're looking for is supposed to be a motorcycle, not a car. And that's what was reported stolen in Montana, not here. So I'm getting a license plate from Colorado, which is a completely different state. So this is not the vehicle I'm looking for. But this was not about going out here and finding a stolen vehicle. Again, this was about terrorizing black people. And I have to wonder where, in the aftermath of all of these protests, it shows us how ineffective protesting is as related to these rogue officers and these race soldiers. Because if protesting was so effective, then why are officers still participating in incidents to terrorize black people like this? I mean, we've had entire cities like Seattle and Portland practically burnt down, businesses burnt down. We've had Minneapolis on fire and looting and rioting, and still we have the same problems still going on, which shows me how the culture of law enforcement is still a problem in this country, and how we have not really even made any efforts to change things in spite of all of the so-called efforts for so-called police reform. Because incidents, even when you think about all the riots that went on over the last couple of months now, and the protests that still go on, this is like troubling when you think about it, because here we have an incident where small children as young as 6 years old are being handcuffed and made to lay on the ground. Again, showing how this culture of blue is about terrorizing black, and how this culture of blue is about making black people feel worthless. And this is just like, it makes it look like your police are no different than your patrollers, their predecessors, or the Ku Klux Klan that they came from, because I doubt these officers would have gone to these extremes for some little blonde white girls. No, the little blonde white girls and their white mother would have probably been practically just stopped over the license plate, and that would have been the end of it. And the message here was one sending from white supremacy, telling these young black girls that they have no value as people, their lives don't matter. And it just, again, shows the complete failure of Black Lives Matter as related to being an organization. Because in spite of all of their protesting, they didn't do anything as related to these kind of cases. And their approach has not stopped these kinds of incidents from going on. Because they're saying that it's some sort of mix-up, again, another play on words, trying to minimize their behavior. But we need to call this what it is: racial profiling and urban terrorism, because this was not about just finding a stolen vehicle. This was about sending a message to black people. And I wrote about this type of incident these kinds of incidents in my novel Temptation of John Haynes. And again, these come from the culture of these kind of departments that has been taught for a numerous period of years. This culture of blue, which thinks that black life has no value. And this is something that cannot be rooted out with just a series of legislation. No, you have to go after the culture, and you have to cut off the heads that create the culture, and you have to root out that culture by removing the people in charge, because once you cut off the heads, the body starts to fall. And that's what we're seeing by so many of these officers going out here and doing things like putting in their papers. They're putting in their retirement papers because that culture of blue is crumbling in front of them. And as that culture of blue that they believe was their protection and their shield starts to fall, they want to get out of here. And that's what happens when you break that culture. And we have to start pushing to break that culture of blue, because that culture of blue is against black life. That culture of blue doesn't see a value in black life. And that culture of blue believes it is justified to terrorize black people, because I guarantee you this wouldn't have happened to any white female out here. And if it happened to any white female out here, there would be extreme outrage as related to this incident. there wouldn't be efforts to try to downplay it. There wouldn't be efforts to try to minimize it. There would be people calling it out for the actual terrorism it is, because this is about humiliating black people, terrorizing black people, and bringing them to a position where they feel worthless. And that's what these officers try to do in these kind of situations, because this wasn't about trying to find a stolen car. This was about sending a message, and the message to black people in Aurora, Colorado needs to be sent crystal clear. And the aftermath of the death of Elijah McCain and this incident, your police department is a racist police department, and it is a police department that is out to terrorize black people, no different than the NYPD here or the Los Angeles Police Department in the late 80s and the early 90s. And this culture of blue is out to make black people feel less than, because the white people want to let the black people know where their place is. And we need to stand up and against this, because Black Lives Matter isn't able to do this. And again, we need strong black male leadership to come out, because when you have no black male leadership in charge that really is serious about protecting ADOS black people, what happens is you have females like this left out to be vulnerable and practically be at the mercy of these race soldiers. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my positive SJS direct fiction, like the ISIS series, the Eaststeam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com, where you can find all my books in paperback and Kindle format. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella. Discover the dark side of love in this goth and lovely romance with Spinsterella. Get Spinsterella in paperback and e-readers at your favorite online bookseller today.